Let me introduce, as my pleasure, the next speaker for us today, and that is Assembly Representative Samantha Kirkman. She does represent our 61st Assembly District. She is a resident locally of Randall, and she was elected here in the year 2000, so we have enjoyed her service for some time. I will give the opportunity to her to address you.
Thanks, Annie. Well, it's great to be here. I also want to mention we have counterparts. We have Salem Supervisor Dan Campion, who's sitting up next to Van, and John Poole, who's County Supervisor, who's in the back with his wife Carolyn, that are all able to join us today too. I just want to echo some of Van's thoughts. As a granddaughter of two World War II veterans, I understand the sacrifice that so many people have made. Not only that, but my brother served in the Gulf War, so I'm the sister of a Gulf War veteran as well. And I myself, when I was in college, tried to enter to the reserves. I was a student at UW-Whitewater and tried to go and get into the Army Reserves, and went through the testing and got up to MEPS. And the first time I tested, I was 7 pounds overweight. They gave me 2 weeks to lose the 7 pounds. I lost 6, and they still wouldn't take me. So at that time, I got an internship in the state capitol, which set me on the course. Not many people know that, and I don't necessarily discuss my weight. And today, they would take me with no questions asked. So how that path, and I want to go back to the World War II veterans in my family. My grandmother, my dad's mom, when her husband, my grandfather, passed away, Grandpa Starzik, she had to go to an assisted living facility. She tried for about 1.5 years to live on her own and wasn't able to make it. And so at that time we had to close down our house, and my dad and my aunt had gone through and they had taken the things that they really wanted to take. And so my dad says, "Sam, it's your turn. I'm the oldest grandchild. You go through the house, pick the few things that you can take." So I went through and found 2 suitcases underneath a bed in the second bedroom. And one of them had a whole bunch of scrapbooks that my grandmother and my grandfather had shared together. In the second suitcase, there was a scrapbook, there's actually 2 scrapbooks, and there was a Purple Heart. And there was a story that was never shared with the rest of our family. That story is, and I wish I would have brought it today, I didn't think to bring it today because I usually only bring it out on Veterans Day and Memorial Day, was that my grandma had been previously married. And her first husband was killed over North Africa in a glider. And the scrapbook tells the story of their about 1.5 year romance and marriage. I could tell that he was home for about 2 weeks and then was deployed again. And she had received a telegram 1 month, the day before their 1-year anniversary, that he was killed. And I think to myself, the sacrifices that all the men and women have made over the years, and that my grandmother never shared the story that her first husband was killed. His name is Joseph Wojak, and his brother, Lieutenant, was killed the year before. And from the pictures that she had left, there is no other siblings. And so when I get the opportunity to talk about him, I don't know his family, but I have this treasure and nobody else to carry on the sacrifice that he made to our country. And I know that World War II is the greatest generation in my eyes because so many people sacrificed so much and then didn't share. And I look at all the veterans today who can communicate in an instant back with their loved ones, even when they are in harm's way. I've talked to friends who've had their husbands on the front line and they called from a satellite phone and could actually talk to their loved ones thinking that they might not make it through that battle. And it still strikes me today, but I think about my grandmother's sacrifice and that she never wanted to share with my dad and his siblings. And so when I look at the flag and the 50 stars and the 13 stripes and the men and women who sacrifice, Betsy Ross, who made that beautiful flag, where we've come as a country. And I also echo Van's thoughts that, on the assembly floor, where I'm privileged to serve, we get the opportunity to debate issues, sometimes very controversial issues. Now, I will tell you, only about 5% of them resonate to getting into the Kenosha News, and I know they're here today. You know, the other 95% that pass on a huge bipartisan basis. But they like to talk about the ones that create controversy because that sells newspapers. But there's many times in the legislature that we work together and work across the aisle. And I was reminded, Jim and I were talking recently about his stint. He was not just, you know, of the other political party in Madison, he was the Democratic leader. And so he had to sometimes lead some of those contentious debates. Yet at the end of the day, when we walked off, we could still talk about Jimmy and Justin, and I could talk about Ian and Evan, and we could have a respectful conversation, because debate is good. It really is truly good. But at the end of the day, we can still have and build relationships. So when we are in different roles, in different capacities, that we can work together for the betterment of our, you know, county, our state, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And so, you know, I'm honored to be here today to stand by this flag and to represent you in Madison, you know, because you have sent me there. And I know that on every issue, you probably don't agree with me. But I try to make the most informed decision that I have at the time and do what's best to make our state and our county better. So again, thank you so much for this opportunity today to share Flag Day and to share a little bit of my family that I don't necessarily like to talk about, but it is special. And I'm sure every person in this room has some kind of special story like my family. And again, thank you.
Thank you. I know Samantha makes me reflect on the fact that, and I'll share this with the families who are here, a lot of faces here, that while still in college, I married because my husband was being called to the Vietnam War. And so immediately after graduation, he served 2 years, was drafted for Vietnam. And so, you know, those stories, in other words, I think the reason we feel it in our hearts so deeply is because we've all, as families as well as veterans, have made personal sacrifices for the very country that we love.